Welcome, everyone, to the next episode of We Built This White Lake. My name is Stephanie Ware. I'm the Director of Events and Membership with the White Lake Area Chamber of Commerce, and I am so excited today to be here with Debbie and Greg Hillebrand, the owners of the beautiful and historic Lewis House in Whitehall. So we are just going to kick it off with some questions about you guys in the business. Share with us a little bit about the business and what it is that you guys do.
Okay, so the Lewis House is an old house that was built in 1878, and we renovated it, and we run it as a bed and breakfast. So a traditional bed and breakfast where guests will come in. They are staying in part. It's first and foremost, it's our home, and so they are staying essentially in our home with us. So we have 4 guest rooms and a cottage as well, and we rent them for overnight stays.
Yeah, and our business is all about hospitality. So we enjoy that. We meet a lot of people year after year. We have lots of returning guests. I would say maybe about 50% of our guests are returning guests. So it's fun to see them year after year. We have some guests that have stayed with us every year that we've been open, except for maybe 1 or 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was one year during COVID where some things they were coming for got canceled, so they couldn't come. But that other years they stayed twice or 3 times.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
We have guests that knock on the door, and they're very spontaneous. They are looking for a place to stay, and we have the returning guests. We have guests that make reservations a year in advance. Because they know that they have an event coming up. A lot of our guests are tied to the community. They have relatives in the community, or they have a special event like a family reunion or a class reunion or something like that. So we have a lot of guests that come from the Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, Eastern Michigan area. I would say for the most part, we've had guests from all over the United States, the Netherlands, England, China, Australia. Yeah.
It's got to be fun to talk to those guests and
it's fun.
Hear about them.
It's the best part is interacting with all the people who come through, having conversations and learning about them, which is a lot of fun. Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about how it all started, where it all began.
It started in 2009 when I had my class reunion. I'm from Davison, Michigan, and I had a class reunion. I think it was our 35th class reunion, if I remember right.
I think it was, yeah.
And after the class reunion, Debbie and I, we were thinking that maybe we should start to look for retirement property. And so we ventured up to the Straits of Mackinac first, and we started to come down the west side of the state, and we snooped around many of the different communities in western Michigan, and we really didn't find a place that felt comfortable, and so we were almost ready to give up and head back to Cincinnati. We were both working at Procter & Gamble at the time. And we said, well, let's make one more trip over to the Lake Michigan seashore area and see what we can find. And we ventured into Montague. And we drove through Montague, and then we came across the causeway, and we started to say, well, this is kind of a neat little area. We didn't met anybody yet, but it felt really kind of, it's very small and quaint and quiet. And we ended up staying at the White Swan Inn that night. Mm-hmm. And we met our friends Kathy and Ron Russell. And they said, we told them what we were doing. And they said, well, the Lewis House is for sale. And we said, oh, what's that? And it was dark out. We walked down there that night and looked at it. And it was magnificent. It was just incredible. And I'll let Debbie finish.
The house was all lit up because the Blue Lake Fine Arts Camp instructors were staying there. So it was all lit up. It just looked majestic and wonderful up there on the hill. And So we got all excited and we went back. We stayed the night at the White Swan Inn, and we got up in the morning. We were all still excited, and we walked over and we looked at it. And then we saw it in the daylight, and we were like, ooh, that's in rough shape, really rough shape. But we loved the area. So we spent probably another month or two coming back and forth from Cincinnati to just kind of look at property. We looked at property all over the place. And we finally decided, let's take another look at the Lewis house. And then we decided, it's really a good project. We could really have a good time. It's close to town. It's walkable. We can do everything we need to do without having to drive. And so we bought it. So I'll let you can then. I mean, we had no intent at the time of making it a bed and breakfast. That didn't happen.
That's an important part of this, is that we bought the house thinking it would be a fun rehab project, and we were up to the task. And then about 3 or 4 months into it, we decided to turn it into a B&B, which made a big difference in kind of like how we were going to design, especially the bedroom area upstairs with the bathrooms. And so we set a goal that we wanted to have the best B&B in West Michigan, if not the Midwest. And by that I mean best would be, for the value, you're getting the best stay around. So that kind of became our objective. And we worked really hard the first year just to plan. We didn't do really anything the first year. We just planned. We would think about the design every night and talk about it. Every day we talked about the design. What are we going to do and how is it going to be laid out? We did not hire an architect. Okay. We designed and researched and thought about it long and hard before we broke ground. And then in 2010, late October, about right now, it was mid or late October.
Yeah.
The house had significant foundation issues. And we had to decide, are we going to put a Band-Aid on those foundation issues, or are we going to fix them? And we decided that we were going to fix them once and for all. So we lifted the house up and took out the old foundation and put in a new foundation. But that also allowed us to capture living space down in the lower level, which then made running the bed and breakfast a lot easier for us to live there comfortably and run a bed and breakfast. So that was kind of a breakthrough in how to proceed from this is our home standpoint. We can be comfortable. We can have 4 bedrooms, 4 baths upstairs, and run it as a B&B.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, as someone who was fortunate enough to tour the Lewis house a few months ago, I can tell you, anybody, that it is very intentionally planned. It is beautiful. You guys put so much thought into every single detail, and it's noticeable. It's very noticeable. What would you guys say is some of the biggest hurdles that you've had to overcome since running it?
I think for me, the whole concept of starting it from complete scratch. It was not a bed and breakfast or any kind of business before we bought the house. So it's everything from all of the construction and renovations to business licensing, website development, all of the pieces and million moving parts that it takes to run the business. Thinking about the food, the recipes, the menus, the sheets, the towels, the soap, everything that goes into what a guest would say is the amenities or just the experience. It's all of that all the time. And like Greg said, with the construction piece, that's all we talked about. Once we were over the hurdle of the construction piece, then it became how do we make this a great place to stay? So for me, that's the biggest hurdle, is just the developing all of the business strategy from scratch.
Okay.
Yeah, during the first year, we we wanted to also set the kind of lay down the philosophy that we're going to preserve this house. And we were fortunate to run into John Rolowitz, who taught us how to do that and preserve the elements of the house that need to be preserved and how to repair those elements. For example, the windows, the doors. He was inspirational and a remarkable craftsman who has his signature all over the house. But one of the things that we did during that first year that took quite a bit of effort was to get it listed on the National Register of Historic Places. And that took a fair amount of research. It was fun. I was out at the library a lot, going through microfiches. Debbie and I were. We went down to Hackley Library, learning about the history of this house and working with Lansing and SHPA to get it listed on the National Register of Historic Places as a private residence. So it's one of the few private residences that are on the National Register of Historic Places in Michigan and in the United States, actually. One of the few that are listed as bed and breakfasts that people can come and stay. That listing required us to conduct the rehab according to the Secretary of Interior's guidelines on rehabbing historic properties, which we were fully engaged in, and that's exactly what we wanted to do. So we did that. We restored the house according to the guidelines, and after we did all that, then we got a plaque.
Okay.
Yeah, and we could put the plaque on the house. But yeah, it's nice to have that. And the name of the house on the National Register is the John C. and Augusta Koval, John C. Lewis and Augusta Koval
Yes.
house. And it wasn't just the John Lewis house. It was the Augusta Lewis house. John Lewis married Augusta Koval. The Kovals were also big lumber people in the area. And so it was important that she also got a nod in the designation on the National Register because she had a lot to do with that home. They raised 3 daughters there, and they lived there till 1944. And that's a long time for a home to be in the same family. And they eventually sold it to a couple from Ravenna, and they were Rose and William Hildebrandt. And we were reading about this in the Beacon. Tanya Cabela wrote an article about this, and we were driving home, and we were reading this about the Hildebrandts bought this house and turned it into a boarding house. And we're going, well, wait a minute, our name is Hillebrand and their name is Hildebrandt. And we thought this must be kind of like an omen. So we kind of decided that hey, this is pretty cool. Anyway, then Blue Lake Fine Arts Camp bought it from the Hildebrandts, and they ran it as a music school and a place for the artists to stay who were performing next door at the Hallmet Playhouse. Awesome. And they owned it from 1977 until we bought it. We bought it from the Blue Lake Fine Arts Camp in 2009. And so that's kind of a quick history of the house itself, which is kind of important as you lay the framework for how it operates today. It has been a place of hospitality since 1944, actually. And probably the Lewises kind of were very hospitable. But as a business, it's been in a kind of the business of hospitality for quite some time.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people realize that Yeah. So it's a kind of a focal point in our community. We knew we were taking on something pretty big when we bought the house, but we really were excited about it. So.
Yeah.
That's awesome. There's so much rich history there between, the logging, the families, the Lewis and the Covels in the logging industry, and boarding for the Playhouse, which is an icon in the community, and Blue Lake Fine Arts Camp, and now you guys. And you're right. It sounds like it's always been a hospitable place, so it makes sense. That's awesome. What would you guys say are some of the biggest victories you've had there?
Oh, gosh. Well, the listing on the National Register was a big step. Getting the business going from scratch and having, people come, and we have great guests, and people are so happy. They thank us all the time for restoring the house and for inviting us in, for inviting them into our home. People have wonderfully good things to say. So I think it's the reward of that. We get to be ambassadors of the community. We've had several guests that have come and stayed with us that have bought property here, that have become our friends. So those are, for me, the big personal victories, is just establishing those relationships and getting to be ambassadors of the community.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I think, I'm not sure if it's a victory, but I think that we are kind of catalyst in helping the general White Lake area as far as commerce and business goes. So people that stay at our house, they need to go find a place to eat at night. So all of our guests are looking for a place, a restaurant here or there. And it's also important that they go out and they shop. And so our guests are bringing a financial impact into the White Lake area. And so we feel that's kind of an important element of our business and how it intertwines with the rest of the businesses in the community.
That's a good point, yeah.
Yeah, and we always say for the White Lake Area Chamber of Commerce, one of our goals is create community and create commerce, and you guys do all of that at the Lewis House, so that's awesome, definitely impactful on the community. Do you guys have any parting words, a parting message to the community, to anyone listening?
Oh, I think just thanks for, letting us be part of that community. We're not right downtown, but we're right there in the community, and we love being part of it. So I would just say thanks for, letting us be part of the community, because people will call us newcomers. No, people will call us outsiders. But I like to think of us as newcomers, and we got here as soon as we could.
Yeah, I guess every time that I leave the White Lake area to go on a business trip or something, and you really get to, I think, understand what a special gem we live in here in this area. And so I have to always kind of remind myself that, it's not an easy business running a bed and breakfast. It is, it takes a lot of time, effort, and grit to run a bed and breakfast.
And organization.
And Debbie and I do all the work. We don't hire anybody to run our bed and breakfast. We do all the work. I generally do all the lawn maintenance, all the outside gardens and everything like that. Debbie's pretty much doing everything on the inside. So, it can sometimes, you go, oh, this is hard work. Why are we doing this? And then you kind of like leave the community and you go to other places, and you kind of look back and you go, and not leave, I mean travel away, and then you see what other places are like, and you go, wow, we really have something really special here in the White Lake area. Yeah.
We do. We have a magical gem in this area, and travel is fun, but there's no
It's
place
good
else
to
I'd
come
rather
home.
be.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you guys both so much for joining us. I encourage people, if you have family and friends coming in, check out the Lewis House Bed and Breakfast to have them come in, or stay there as a staycation.
That's right.
It's beautiful. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.